We're on. We're recording.
We are live.
We are on live, yes. So Claire is going to be giving our final presentation of the day, and gosh, it seems like it's been a really exciting day, but gosh, it seems like ages ago when we started. Grand. So over to you, Claire.
Thank you very much. So hi everybody, I'm Claire Whitehouse. I'm the Senior Nurse for Nursing, Midwifery and AHP Research, Allied Health Professions Research at the James Paget University Hospitals here in Norfolk in the UK, not the US. I'm going to talk to you a bit about what we've been doing around building capacity and capability for research activities, both delivery and homegrown activities within our site and sort of regionally. So just share my screen. I just wanted to say a proper hello before I did that. So if you could let me know once you can see my PowerPoint, please. Can you see?
Yep, you can see that, yep.
Fab, thank you. So I'm also a National Institute for Health Research 70 at 70 Senior Nurse Leader, and I'm just been appointed as a visiting fellow at Staffordshire University in the last couple of weeks. That's very exciting. So for those of you who are joining internationally, I thought I'd set the scene a little bit as some of the others have done already. So obviously we've got the map of the UK and we are based over here. In the middle of Norfolk, you've got Norwich is about here, so this is where I live, but the Great Yarmouth is just over here by the sea. So our population covers Norfolk and Suffolk, just to let people know really, and that's they're the counties that we serve. So this is the front of the James Paget Hospital, and we're a district general sized university hospital. So we're a small hospital. So for those of you that aren't in the UK and don't know, district generals were much smaller hospitals, originally known as sort of cottage hospitals and those kind of things. So whereas typically people think about the university hospitals as being much bigger in the city centres, we're not that, but we are a university hospital, so we do have academic links to a couple of universities. We've got about 3,500 staff and we serve a population of about 250,000. And Great Yarmouth comprises of 20% of low-income families, which is lower than average for England as well. So it's quite a high area of deprivation and need. So I joined in 2012, and we had 2 bank part-time clinical research nurses at that time and 1 research and development manager, and I was appointed as the senior clinical research nurse at that time to come in, and the idea was that I would come in and I would help to bring studies in and generate further study, increase the kind of the disease areas that we were covering, and basically expand the team, and depending on how we thought that might work locally. And my background experience was in critical care. So I'm an intensive care nurse by background and went into my first research role in 2010. I can't believe it's that long ago, actually. But yeah, 2010, I was working in London at the time. And I went straight into critical care research. When I came here to the James Paget, that was when I took my first senior research nurse role, covering all disease areas in the whole trust. And then if you compare that to now, we've got 24 staff, and this is the core research team. So this doesn't include all of those other people that are doing research hours here and there. This is the core team. And we've got clinical research nurses, clinical research midwives now. We have practitioners and trials assistants, as have been discussed in a couple of other sessions today. And that also includes our research facilitators who support with getting the studies up and running from a non-clinical perspective. So that was the role that I was covering. I was covering those teams for about 8 or so years. No, more than that. Sorry, I can't believe how long ago it's been. Anyway, I was covering the research delivery team, and I was expanding that team, as you can see. And I suppose what I've really been interested in is expanding that further. So from a research and development point of view, it really felt like we were doing the research, but it didn't really feel like we were doing that much of the development. So my role was changed slightly about 2.5 years ago when I came back from maternity leave, and the idea was that my role would become much more about homegrown research activity. Now, for obvious reasons, that's not always happened, pandemic being the most obvious, but it's not always happened where I've been able to be completely in this role. That's only been the case for the last 4 or so months. So I just thought I'd talk you through from that point onwards so that you can see, because I get the impression from some of the other international visits that we've seen so far, and from some of the talks today actually, that this might be the bit that's most helpful for people. So fingers crossed it will be. So again, for our international colleagues, just so you know, we do have national drivers, such as the NHS Constitution long-term plan. These are only a couple of lots of examples, but there are national drivers, and we know that research active organisations, that patient safety is increased for those who are in research active organisations. And in kind of, I was going to say in homage to that, it's not really a homage, but in our trust decided that we would make sure we had research as a part of one of our ambitions. So we've got these 4 ambitions that you can see on the screen. So point 4 there, it's about active participation in innovation, research and partnerships to transform services. And that's really great, because what we hadn't seen a huge amount of, this is probably 2 or 3 years ago, was lots of trusts didn't have research as one of their ambitions. And I think for when you're in a smaller organisation, it can be such a challenge to get things moving in the first place, that once you've got that true kind of trust level buy-in, it really does start to make a difference. And this was one of the things that really helped push that along. And this is still one of the ambitions today, which is brilliant. And then for those of you who know me, or those of you who don't, a few years ago, I was really fortunate, applied for Florence Nightingale Foundation scholarship. And I was able to travel the UK and Ireland. This was back in 2016 and 17 for over a year as part of my role. So I had 4 weeks of study leave allocated to it. And this came off the back of research. For our research delivery team, we were just about to have an 8-person business plan agreed and approved with accommodation for the research team. It was just amazing. It was all looking really good, and we had a huge budget cut at that time. So not locally, but through the national funding streams. And that was a real shame, because we had achieved targets that we needed to achieve. And I think lots of people had a funding cut at that time. And so it would have been really easy to have a knee-jerk reaction to how we were going to manage this. But what we actually decided to do was not do anything immediately. So this is where the travel scholarship came from, where the Whitehouse report actually started, because what we thought we'd do is scope and see what have other people done. There must be other trusts out there who are our size, much bigger than us and much smaller than us. So let's go and talk to them and find out what they're doing. Let's find out about their structures. Let's find out about their strategies. Is there anything that we can learn and then share that we could input into our future plans, being that they were changing so dramatically. And so that was it was never intended to become a full national report, but because the way that the scholarship worked was, I went and I had one-to-ones with people, I did focus groups, I literally travelled to all sorts of sites across the UK and Ireland, and people were so generous with what they were willing to share. And that was really lovely, and it really seemed to resonate with lots of other people. And that's when I realised just how impactful we as clinical research nurses can be if we have, I'm not saying that we have one voice, because that's not necessarily the right thing either, but to have a strong voice with us all together, knowing what we want and what we want to achieve is really, I think, really key. The other thing that I'd noticed was that we don't realise what we do well because it's what we do. So we're not so good at saying, kind of showcasing, and that's what I love about the IACRN virtual visits, is that it gives an opportunity to do that. And seeing some of the other visits so far as well, I've been able to look at them and you can see that people are saying, you know, this is what we're doing. But I've learned so much from all of those that we can, and things that we can bring back. So it's exactly how I found when I was going through the scholarship. So that was really exciting. And there were recommendations from that as well. And one of the recommendations linked very much to clinical research nurses and nurse researchers as kind of two separate entities. I'm not suggesting that they are completely separate, because you can be one or either, or, you know, you can have a merge potentially in your role. But for the sake of ease of explaining this, we had the research delivery team. But what we noticed was that there needed to be meaningful clinical oversight of those teams for those teams to be truly successful and to have that buy-in from the organisations. And some, like I was saying before, I think from a research and development point of view, we had really grown our research team, our research delivery team, and the team was really strong. They were very experienced. We had training programs and things in place for them, and they were doing such a great job that they didn't really need me to do what I was doing in that way anymore. But what we did need was to be able to build that development and to grow that kind of that baseline of almost zero, particularly nursing, midwifery and allied health professions research at our trust. So one of the things that came up from the scholarship was that you need to have somebody leading the delivery team, but ideally you need to have somebody else leading the homegrown design and development and innovation, because I've tried to do that. I tried to do both, and what I felt like I was doing was not doing either particularly well. And actually in the last 6 months, my role has changed again slightly, which I'll speak to in a second. And the amount that I've been able to achieve from homegrown research in the last 6 months has been so much more than the last 2.5 years. So that's been a really interesting learning curve for me as well. So I've pulled up the 70 at 70 banner here, and if you've been on the calls already today, you'll have heard various people speaking about these, but I thought it was just worth giving you an overview about what is expected in these roles. So there's 70 of us, or 66 now. And we were appointed when, as the NHS turned 70, it was about a legacy around that. So 70 senior nurses and midwives were provided with 15 hours a week over a 3-year period of ring-fenced funded time to undertake these points here. And I just wanted to kind of give an overview of these, because this is really what I do now as my whole role. So although I'm funded for 15 hours specifically, our organisation have absolutely bought into this, and they really truly value the idea of homegrown nursing, midwifery and AHP research. And so my role as a whole covers this, which I know how fortunate I am. It's taken a lot of work to get here, but it's really exciting now that we are. So part of the role is about promoting the importance of an integrated research culture. And so there's lots of work that people are doing around this, and I suppose presenting at events like this is one of those as well. But it's also those smaller things. So I think about Fiona Maxton's presentation from this afternoon about healthcare assistants, and how we were discussing about some of the smaller projects that they were doing, but they're really not small, because they could have a really big impact. And that is building that research culture, you know, in getting involved in some of the training that they do as well. So this is across all professions. Being a proactive champion for developing nurse and midwife research capacity and capability within their care settings. So we are all generally based in NHS trusts, but I think there are a few of us that are linked to or working in academic organisations as well. But the idea is that if we want to home grow this research, it's great having these national organisations, but what we also really need, and what the NIHR recognised, was that we needed people on the ground who were going to be championing this and really pushing it forward. And I think that's really something that 70 at 70 has enabled us to do, certainly for me locally. Encouraging research collaborations and sharing of knowledge and skills throughout the care setting. So again, this could be all sorts of things around teaching and training, or it could be one-to-one, it can be shadowing. We have lots of student placements and those kind of things. So I'll speak a bit more about some of this shortly. And then a wider link with the work of the NIHR. And it was great speaking to Ruth Endicott, the new Director of Nursing for the NIHR, at lunchtime today, and hearing her visions for the workforce and in its development. And she's very keen to make sure that we are all involved as research nurses or nurse researchers in the development of whatever happens next around her workforce priorities. So that was really great to hear. And the development of future research leaders as well. So again, this is linked to not necessarily clinical academic leaders, so those that are taking that academic pathway, but it could be anyone, again, like Jen's mentioned a few times as well. And then I suppose this is the one where this is the final part of the roles from an NIHR perspective, but it's something that's really helped forge progress within our organisation and actually building up what those priorities look like. But in understanding the priorities, you also need to get your house in order, and you need to have the foundations in place first. So what's been really fantastic for me, so this is Paul Morris on the left and Jackie Copping, who's just been given an MBE, bless her. So Paul is our Director of Nursing and Jackie is our Deputy Director of Nursing at the James Paget. And my role previously, I reported through the research and development structure. In November last year, we decided to change that. So I now sit within it's called the Corporate Nursing Portfolio, which is I work directly with Jackie and Paul. And that's been fantastic in terms of buy-in, because they completely get the value, the importance of nursing, midwifery and AHP-led research activity. And it's just been fantastic having brainstorming sessions with them. And they've been very, very generous in sharing all of their knowledge, but they've been also really, really kind in accepting that from a research perspective, I have that experience and knowledge that they don't, so I'm able to support them. So it's very much a collaborative working relationship, and that's made a really big difference recently. And this is Helen Hall, and Helen is the Research and Development Grants Advisor and Research Paramedic. So Helen was brought in post about 2.5, 3 years ago to support those staff who wanted to go for grant applications for their research. But what Helen did was spent some time really scoping what the landscape looked like. And what she really found, and then what I found once I was able to move into the role a little bit more about 12 months ago, was that we weren't really at that point. We have some research, we're very, very good at delivered research for other organisations or commercial companies, etc. But we just don't have, or we didn't have, the knowledge and the know-how to develop these homegrown research activity. And where that was happening, it was usually with somebody, perhaps a medic, who was on an honorary contract with us and the University of East Anglia, who's our closest university. So we were trying to think about how we would build upon that. So it's just their Twitter handles in case anyone wants to have a look. So we thought about this in kind of 4 sort of themes. So once Helen and I were able to sit down together and brainstorm what she'd found and think about the things that I'd been sort of thinking about and also identified, we sat down together and thought, actually, we could do something together here. So although Helen reports into research and development and I report into the corporate nursing portfolio, actually we work completely as a duo. And I think that's been massive step forward for us as well, because you're not doing it on your own. You're not trying to do something and feeling like you're climbing up a hill. It's actually you've got someone else to bounce ideas off. And it's true, 2 heads are better than 1. So, and what we came up with was these 4 kind of themes that we wanted to look at. So capacity and capability of staff in research was very key, But what we both found was that our staff just didn't have the confidence to do it. They didn't know where to start. They didn't know how to be research aware. They were very much used to using evidence in their delivering their care, but they weren't they didn't have the confidence to think about building research questions and what to do with them after that. So that became our first theme. The second very much again fitted in with the delivery team as well. So the supporting and influencing career development opportunities. Again, I'll speak to that shortly. We wanted to establish research focus links with higher education institutions and other organisations. So the reason that I've said research focus was because we have huge links from an educational perspective across quite a number of universities, colleges, all sorts of places. But we didn't really have that research link. And I'm hoping that people will understand what I mean by that. So we have all these educational pathways, particularly for nurses, midwives, and AHPs, but we don't have those educational teams. They didn't even know what research opportunities were out there in terms of education. So there was this real mismatch that we kept seeing. So we wanted to kind of build on the educational links that we had, but generate this research activity in collaboration with them as well. And obviously, the other thing, the fourth theme is about actually wanted to design some of our own research too. And we wanted to get research and activities off the ground ASAP. But we're also very conscious that Helen's full-time, I'm 27 hours a week, so I'm not actually full-time. And we were trying to do all of this as well as everything else. So we needed to make sure that we had those foundations in place. So we needed to try and work out what we needed. So we spoke to a couple of other organisations who are probably 6 or 12 months ahead of us. But also, we realised that we did, between us, have quite a bit of experience that we were able to bring. So thinking about stepping back to that kind of scoping work that I mentioned that Helen did previously and that I also then joined in with, I suppose what I'm trying to say is our starting blocks for research activity for nurses, midwives, and AHPs are much further back than other organisations. And I think that's fine because we've recognised it. And I think if we'd have really tried to push research alone, we probably wouldn't have got very far yet. What we recognised was that people felt a bit more comfortable considering audits or quality improvement, because there's been a lot of quality improvement over the last 2 years or so. And service evaluations, people thought that evaluating their service was a one-off survey or something like that. So, but because they were slightly more comfortable with some of those words, terminologies, and ways of working, they were used to doing audits on the wards, for example, or within their teams. What we were saying to them was, okay, well, let's take a step back from research and let's just get people to understand what the differences are. And this is where this AHPs page has come from. I feel like Gordon might like a ditty. I mean, but that's very just because you're Scottish, really. And I love a ditty in a Scottish accent. But the ditty on the left there, this was off the back. I was sitting down with Eva, who is, at the time, she was about 2. She's 3 and a bit now. And she was watching Peter Rabbit. And she kept humming. And I thought, how does she know that tune already? And I just thought, actually, I wonder if we can do. So this is where the archive ditty came from. Anyway, people seem to have been much more receptive to building their confidence towards research rather than just going straight into it. And I think that for Helen and I, we found it quite tough to start with. And I think once we recognised that it was okay, that we just weren't ready for some of the research activity and that we'd need to grow to get there, we were able to have that conversation with Paul and Jackie as Director and Deputy Director of Nursing, and kind of thrash that out as one big brainstorm. And actually, they completely understood where we were coming from. And that was like the light bulb moment for us, really. So it kind of gave us space to grow. And when you think about what our challenges are from an NHR 70 at 70 point of view and what our roles are, for us, it doesn't start at research when it comes to developing our own. It starts at quality improvement, service evaluation, and clinical audit. So bearing in mind that was kind of over the last 18 months or so, I just thought I'd let you know where we are now in terms of our portfolio. So we have 11 nursing projects underway. They're a mixture of service evaluation and some small research projects, some pilot studies. We've got 6 midwifery projects underway, although 2 of those were sort of more, we're in an advisory role, really. But that does include setting up the entire midwifery service to become research active, because until last year, January last year, we didn't have any studies at all in midwifery, and that was something that always really bothered me, because I just felt that they were missing opportunities. So that's been a huge project, and it's been really, really exciting. And we've still managed to do that despite COVID. So that's been great as well. We've had 7 AHP projects, and some of these are supporting some of the AHPs through their master's studies. Some of them are specific studies where they've looked at audits, and now they're developing their next stage, so they're building up their proposals. I've included corporate here because we have a corporate division within our trust, and some of the people that are working within those divisions are nurses, midwives, AHPs by background, but they wouldn't officially sit within nursing, midwifery and AHP projects above. So I just thought I'd make that, kind of give some explanation around that as well. In the last 6 months or so, Helen and I have submitted 2 nurse-led grant proposals, which have been our first ever nurse-led grant proposals from the trust. So that's been really exciting. Hard work, but really exciting anyway. And we've learned a huge amount from doing that together as well. So that's been really good. One of them was for the Burdett Trust last year. We were unsuccessful. I think we got to round 2. So we kind of felt, well, for our first go, we'll take that as a win. We'll take that as a success. And the second one was for the General Nursing Council for England and Wales Trust, which hopefully we'll hear about this month. I believe we're meant to be told one way or another by the end of May, so fingers crossed. And for that, we're looking at redeployment activities for looking for practical tools for redeployment, as voiced by those on the front line. So for all of us who are redeployed, what would make life easier for us? Because most of the work that's happened so far has been around just speaking about being redeployed. It's not actually come up with some of those practical solutions. So there was actually a really huge NHR funded study. I think that's from Oxford, if my memory serves me, that has just started around redeployment. So we suspect that might be why we weren't successful in the Burdett one. But with this one, we're making a regional approach to see what fits for us, and hopefully that will complement the bigger study as well. Helen's been working with Carl Philpott, who's a professor in ENT, on a research patient benefit grant, and that looks like it's about just over £1 million, and they've been successful. They're just now sorting out some various finance bits and pieces. So Helen's worked incredibly hard on that as well. So that's been great learning for us both. From an evaluation perspective, so we did put in 2 bids with Health Education England for evaluations of some of the pipeline to nursing programmes. So for those of you who aren't aware, there are various programmes because of the big nursing shortage that we're facing. There's been quite a push over the last few years, especially, to expand the number of people who can access nursing as a career. And some of those people may be more mature students who have financial reasons why they're not able to go and complete their degree at university, or they might be in, for us, areas of deprivation and need, and so they don't have the necessary access qualifications like English, math, science, those kind of things. So some of these programs have been set up. So there's the Nurse Cadet program, and there's the trainee nursing associates that people may have heard of. So there's more than that, but those are sort of 2 examples. And one of these for the Nurse Cadet programme, which has literally just started at the Paget. We were asked by the Trust, actually by Jackie, the Deputy Director of Nursing. She asked Helen and I if we would undertake an evaluation of it whilst it was live. So, okay, yeah, that's fine. We'll do some longitudinal approach. But we said we need some funding to be able to do that because of our, like I said, we're 1 full-time and 1 part-time. And we have been successful in getting some money to support us with that for a research associate. So that's really great. And then the second one, we run a healthcare academy, which is called, so we run a junior and a senior healthcare academy. The junior is age 16, and then the senior is sort of 17s-ish. And they can come along, so they'll apply when they're at school. So sorry, 14 to 16 is the junior, 16, 17 is the senior. So it's a competitive process, and they can apply to come and work with us for a day a week for 6 months. And they have a full programme that they follow as part of that. And the idea is that many of those, well, hopefully many of those will go through into healthcare roles. So this isn't specifically about nursing, but it's about any healthcare role at all. Quite a few of the students from this have gone into careers in healthcare so far. And this one's been up and running for the last 3 years. So we're gradually keeping an eye on how they're getting on. And the SHAPE report, so that was the study, as you can see the picture over there, is about to be released in the next week or so. So we can circulate that to anybody that's interested in growing your own from a very young age. I suppose the other thing to say to people is that because we're on the coast in Great Yarmouth, in theory, half of our population is sea. So in Norwich, where I live, we have this population of land all the way around us. So people can come from anywhere, whereas at the Paget, half of that is removed just by geography. So we do look to grow our own staff as well, and that's one of the ways to do it. I've been appointed as co-applicant on the NERS study, and this is looking at recruitment retention in particular of nursing, midwifery and AHP staff in organisations, and the potential correlation of that to patient safety and outcomes. So this is it's just over 3.5 years. We're just at the end of year 1, and there are 2 work packages for this study. The first is it's a big data study, so it's pulling all anonymised data, looking at ward level. So we've got NHS Digital, which looks at the whole, but what we're trying to do is drill right down to ward level, and actually, can we see what does the data say to us about turnover or redeployment, or how many staff are on, and what the skill mix is in, and all of that kind of stuff. And we're looking at about 23 different data sets as part of that study. And what we have managed to achieve, the first part of the study is about, is it actually possible to extract big data of this size across NHS trusts? So there's 10 secondary care sites, 10 ambulance services, and 10 mental health trusts that are involved in this study. None of them are live yet, because as lead site, we are actually generating and building those data extraction protocols. If you'd have asked me just over a year ago if this was the sort of thing I'd be doing, I would have I wouldn't have believed it, to be honest, because big data is just not something I'm familiar with. But what's really great is that I'm really interested in recruitment retention, but particularly in retention of staff. Because I do believe that if you look after your staff, it helps them or enables them to look after your patients in a much better way, and it makes us feel better as well, doesn't it? So so that's been a really interesting challenge over the last year. It's the one non-patient directly patient-specific study that we've kept open the entire way through, and I think that's testament again to Paul and Jackie and our board for their complete understanding of how important nurse-led research activity can be. So hopefully, again, by the end of next month, we should have completed all of the data extraction and built the algorithms, which means that we can open our sites in the next few months. So super exciting. So if any of you are on the call, then thank you for all of your help so far. And that study is funded by the Health Foundation. And it's also how we got the link with Staffordshire University, and how I've now become a visiting fellow there because of all the work that we've done. And it's spun off quite a lot of other work opportunities as well. We're developing a embedded researcher model at the moment, and I'm working with Linda Tinkler, who is up in Newcastle. And we're just trying to work out what this could look like. I'm not going to go into too much detail at all at the moment because we're very early stages of working out how to do this. But Linda's trust is much, much larger. It's very large. I'm not sure on the population, but it's a much larger site than us at the James Paget. So the idea is that if we can create some sort of model that as a core could be used elsewhere and be transferable, hopefully everyone else would be able to use that as well. And we're working closely with the impact research group at the University of East Anglia. So we're meeting with them literally next Tuesday to think a bit more about what that will physically look like. So we know what we want to do, but we haven't quite worked out how it will look yet. So that's the next stage. So that's happening now. And then I'm really excited about this. We've just had, we put into charitable funds a request for a full-time research associate post. So these are similar to the research associates or assistant posts that you have in the universities here in the UK. But we don't typically have them within the NHS in the same form. They're quite often got different titles, or they work slightly differently, or they're employed by the university and then they come into the NHS organisations. What we'd really like to do is have someone in the organisation, so they will work directly with Helen and I and Paul and Jackie, and they will be responsible for building their own portfolio of research as well, research activity around nursing, midwifery and AHPs. So again, that's the post. We've got the funding. We know that the funding's been approved, and we're just waiting for sign off for the job description. So that will be going out to advert very soon. And obviously I couldn't talk about all of this without mentioning COVID and the pandemic. But I don't want to kind of base all of this on that, but I do want to recognise it because it obviously has been really tough. So for me, as you know, my background is an intensive care nurse. So when we were first hit last year, I did all my training in bits and pieces and went straight back into ICU to help out there and to work there for a while. And then I was trying to support some of the emergency public health studies that were still coming through. But quickly we found that there was so many priority studies coming through that we absolutely did need all hands on deck. I think for me, I felt that I couldn't ask anyone else to do anything if I wasn't going to be doing it myself. So I went first and we did it that way, but I kind of fairly quickly came back as well. And then our trust set up a rapid response trust ethics committee that was probably about April last year. And I was contacted to be a member on that committee. So when I came back into the research role, I was very much supporting that, and then particularly again over Christmas into January when we had the particularly awful wave for this area. We were doing that. We were probably doing about 6 or 8 discussions a day at some point. That was quite tough going. But I think with Paul and Jackie and the trust, they wanted Helen and I to keep doing this work. So Helen did support. As you know, Helen was was research paramedic, as I mentioned. So Helen went back and tried to support with some of the airway therapies, treatments, intubation, all of this kind of stuff as well, with a paramedic hat on. But yeah, the trust were very, very keen that the pandemic won't be here forever, and we really want to support our staff to be okay. And because a lot of people haven't been okay, and sometimes hope and having something to look forward to makes a real difference. So they could see that we were building all of this work and we were building all of this excitement, and they didn't want that to go. So I'm really grateful to them for that, because they didn't have to do it, but they did, and they kept us, they kept supporting us to keep going with what we were doing. And we have been able to now support various members of staff to go on to do the NIHR Health Education England bridging schemes for the pre-masters and pre-doc. And we've had some more people that we're supporting over the last few weeks, because that's open now for applications, that we're supporting them as well. So last year we had 2 people who were awarded fellowships, and that was the first time that anyone had applied. So Helen and I had an aim of at least getting 1 application in, and it didn't matter if it was successful or not. We just wanted to be able to support somebody to at least apply. But then we actually had 2 that were successful, so that was really great. And those people have since come on to be principal investigators for some of the other studies. And so that's a nurse and a physio. And then we've, as I said, we wanted to link out to lots of our other colleagues as well. And we've expanded some of the educational organisations that we've linked to. So these are just some examples of those. And we've managed to make some more international links as well. And then we've developed an online learning suite for staff, and some of these, so there's a mixture of literature analysis, and again, we're linking in with our library services. And we've got some of the people that we've supported already through service evaluations who have since completely revamped their own service and have given themselves more time to do things, as well as still seeing their patients, but just in different ways. We've had some of them do some interviews with us as well, so they're on our website as well. And then we linked in with Professor Rebecca Wright, who's at Johns Hopkins Uni in the US, and she and I did an online publications webinar, so it's about 35 minutes just of talking through. So for those people who want to write something but don't know where to start, we sort of took that tact with it, I suppose. And since then, we did that one in December last year. And since then, Helen and I have been really trying to support people with writing for publication. So, and I think we've now got 16 or 17 first-time authors, where we've been able to support them, all within the trust. And I say they're first-time authors; they will be. The papers haven't been published yet, but they have all been accepted for publication. So that's been really great. And like Fiona was saying earlier, it's being able to give that and see people grow is just really nice part of the job. And then one of the other things that we particularly wanted to do as well is that although Helen and I are both working towards our academic qualifications, so Helen's currently completing her master's, I'm about to start my PhD in September. We have some of the academic understanding, but we don't have massive amounts. So what we wanted to do was set up some honorary research contracts with some people who have some of those skills that we don't, and that we can collaborate with. I'm really delighted to announce Hazel Smith the week before last on International Day of the Midwife as our first ever honorary researcher from an NMAHP, from nursing midwifery and AHP perspective at the trust. So really exciting working with her lots at the moment. And I shall stop talking now. There's so much to tell you. I'm just hoping I've given you at least something that will be really helpful. So I'll just stop sharing my screen, and I'm very happy to take any questions and thoughts that anyone might have.
Marvelous, Claire. I mean, I think one thing that kind of strikes me is that, you know, you were saying about how your own trust, you perhaps had you were starting from a point that was further back from other trusts or other areas or other hospitals, but it's really testimony to you and the guys that you're working with and the leadership within your trust. You know, the amount that you've done, and you know, it's really credit. And I think, you know, you're in that group of research champions that really is pushing the research agenda, and for clinicians to make them more comfortable with research, for research nurses to promote their role, for AHPs to promote their role. So it seems to be across the board. So I think that really is fantastic.
Yeah, they have, honestly, our board, it has taken a lot of banging on the drum for a good 8 or 9 years from a delivery perspective, but what that has done is it's just really helped the conversations happen, and that's just been great, because without the conversations nothing changes. So if you can get your foot in the door to have those conversations in the first place, then that's great. And I think having the 70/70 ring-fenced funding has been really helpful as well. So because I think it's something that the trust can really understand and can really relate to. And of course it brings in some money, which always helps everything. So but I think it's not really about the money. The money helps, but I think you're right, having the buy-in, having trust board, all of board, and including the finance team happy,
Well
and get it is, and it's not, there are still challenges, because we are still facing, to an extent, some of that. People just don't understand the value and the importance of NMAHP led research, and so we are constantly, like I said, banging that drum. But I'm not doing it on my own anymore, and it's so different, and it's so nice, and it feels like change is happening, and it's really nice to be kind of part of that, and people have been absolutely brilliant. Yeah.
And it seems like a great team, and you mentioned Hazel, and well, a few of us know Hazel very well, and it's
Yeah.
fantastic to get her involved. So, Fiona, you had a question for Claire.
Yeah, I just need to put my glasses on to read what I said. That's brilliant, and I know how hard you've been working and how difficult, what a challenge it is. I'm thinking, do you still come across disparate people in the organisation go, oh, I didn't know you were doing a master's, or I didn't know you were thinking about this project. Would you like some help? I know from me, I'm getting more requests from people I didn't even know about. And now, because of COVID and because of our higher profile, but I still think I need a better seamless sort of system for working with practice development, because I keep saying this, but they say no, they don't.
I completely hear you. So yeah, agreed. Literally in the last few weeks, one of the things that we've set up, so I managed to meet with our head of education, who Claire Ward, who's just brilliant. And I just said to her, can we just have an hour in the diary so that we can just talk about what each other does? Because I feel like there must be stuff we can do together to make each other's lives easier, and to make our own lives easier, but most importantly, to make it more obvious and more accessible to all of the staff. And so last Monday, it's literally still happening now. Last Monday we had an hour, and it was brilliant, absolutely brilliant, because she had no idea what kind of links we had, how far and wide. She didn't know about IACRN or anything like this, and we were able to kind of share a lot of that sort of thing. And then I was able to learn a huge amount about things like CPD monies, or the practice facilitators. The practice facilitators don't have any research experience at all, so the only people that are getting that practice education support are those who are seeing the research team. And so if they're not seeing the research team on their wards or wherever else, they're not getting it at all. So that was quite a big gap, but something that at least I could go back to our delivery teams. We've now got 2 seniors running that team. I was able to go to them and say, do you know about this? And then that fitted with what they're doing, the research bit, and then the other stuff fitted with me and what Claire's doing in terms of the development stuff. So I'd say it feels to me like that's going to be a really key relationship, and she felt the same. And we've actually set up meetings once a month now together for an hour, completely, and we're going for a coffee, we're going away, we're not going to be near anywhere that people can knock on the door for that 1 hour. We're going to be completely luxurious and just talk about all of this sort of stuff once a month. And already we've been able to I've been able to link her into a couple of research studies that so she's now part of that. And she's been able to link me with some of the CPD routes, which I had no idea about as well. And so I've been able to then support some of the delivery team to know what that means. So yeah, I'd say that's definitely, for me, it feels like that's going to be the next step, and having that awareness as well.
Yeah, definitely. Okay, thanks. That's my thoughts as well, and something that I need to develop further, foster.
Yeah, I get, it's funny, isn't it? Because you quite often think with any of these things, it will link to somebody else, and you think, oh, it'd be good to talk to that person or this person, but you don't get to the point of being able to do it. And at this point, when I contacted Claire, she said, I've been meaning to contact you for 6 months, and I was like, I know, me too. So I was like, right, I'm doing it. I'm just doing it. And now it feels like there's going to be a much more, sometimes I wonder if my role might sit better with education.
Yes.
So, but we don't know yet. We're still trying out where I am and how this, what this might look like, and what it looks like now might be quite different in 6 or 12 months time. But if we don't do it, no one's ever going to try, are they?
I kind of think in terms of where I work, that's one of the big things that we're been missing out of from over the past year. Those kind of serendipitous things where you bump into somebody in the corridor that you've been looking to catch up with for a while and think, hey, let's go for a coffee or let's catch up about something. So looking forward to that being able to happen again over the next year and moving forward. So I don't know if you've seen some of the comments coming in, Claire, but I think that
no, sorry.
I think inspiring is a fair summary of those. So, and thank you everyone for those comments, and I'm sure Claire will catch up with them.
Thank you.
Jen, you said that the academy, that there's parallels there maybe with the Life Lab in Southampton.
You're muted, Jen.
No wonder she's not able to unmute herself. There you go.
There we go.
Oh.
Yeah, I don't know why. I'm supposed to be host. Who knows? It's because I'm too tired.
That's what happened to me earlier.
I just need to be mute for a bit. That was really great, as always, Claire. Thank you so much. And if you want things done, ask a busy person, as they say. So how lucky they are to have you there. So yeah, I love your academy idea. And there have been some things I've been looking at nationally around a cadet force and things for research and getting young people inspired. And I think that research nursing is a real hook to inspire people to become nurses. And I think we would capture even more people if they realized that they could take this other sort of parallel path in research nursing. But yeah, your academy, that's really fabulous. And it just reminded me of something we're doing in Southampton, led by the BRC, really, and investigators who are big in behavior change and looking at bringing in young people. So every student in Southampton, while they're in secondary school, has the opportunity to come in and spend time in this purpose-built lab. So the teachers, the science teachers, every science teacher in the city is educated through this Life Lab program to present this program of improving, and it's sort of three-pronged. So it's about improving the health of the children, inspiring science careers, and looking at the behavior change of the study so that they get enrolled in a study and looking at whether their health outcomes improve because of the exposure they've had to dissecting these really awful lungs that have been tarred up with tobacco smoke, and looking at little placentas because the women, the mummies, were smokers, and nutrition issues, and also the impact on the families, because often, as you know, when you improve the health of young people, their families benefit as well. So it's this huge program. And just to see that you had this sort of snapshot of a similar thing was really fascinating, because there's huge infrastructure and funding around this, this project. It's an international project as well, but really interesting to see it in another way, and how important that is to engage the young people, as you say, to grow our own. But often we have the research nurses going, they have a career session when they visit the lab, and they hear from scientists and doctors and research nurses about their jobs, to encourage them to take up their science, you know, GCSEs and A levels and things. So really fascinating stuff. I put the link in the chat if people wanted to have
fab, thank you. Yeah, I'll send you, once I'm allowed to send the PDF, I'll ping that around as well.
Do.
It's just going through Health Education England at the moment, and then once they've given us the tick, then I will make sure that it goes out to anyone that's interested.
It'd be great.
I'll tweet it actually, because most people are on there, aren't they?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Grand. Well, I think we're just about moving towards the end of day one, and so I thought I'd put up the agenda for day two. So tomorrow we're starting at 9:30, and that's running through till 4:30 in the afternoon. That's British Standard Time for all these. You can see that there's a change to schedule. So there's the Irish contingent are doing a session tomorrow morning. That's a bit of a change from Lorraine, who unfortunately can't do her session. And also Emma Heron's doing a session in the afternoon as well. So we'll tweet this out, and we'll get this out to people so you can see the schedule for the day. So I just wanted to say thank you very much to all the speakers. Thanks to Jen and Claire. And Jen, I'm amazed, Jen, honestly, because Jen was at the Shanghai session from 1:30 to 4 o'clock this morning, and she's going to be going to the Japanese session from 2 till 4 or something mad like that, and then going to be here with us again tomorrow. So just amazing. So, and thank you everyone for attending, and hopefully see you tomorrow. See you
thank you, everybody, everyone. And thank you, Gordon.
Thank you.
Stop the recording.